Is my hair all right, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
What am I supposed to say?
Ask him where he is.
Oh, okay.
Tell him we're up in the history room, the 100-year history room. Whatever it's called.
Did you see him yesterday?
Pardon?
Did you see him yesterday, my guess?
No, he's meeting us for lunch today, but he was going to come here. 'Cause
Yeah.
he really wanted to see the artifacts, and I was joking with him. He'll have to wait till the exhibit's out to see them. Is my hair all right?
Yes. Let's take one step forward. So yeah, you can always keep an eye kind of use this. Take one more step forward.
So Richard, it takes the projectors a little while to warm up, so I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to make that happen.
Okay, no worries, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. I am gonna post up signs in front of here, just let people know y'all are filming in here, and then I'll run back here as soon as I can to check in, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Your name is?
Luke.
Luke. Nice to meet you.
It's such a pleasure to meet you as well.
Wow.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to blind you with this light, but I have to kind of have the shot be bright. It's kind of dark right here. Take one more step forward.
Voicemail only, honey. So I told him what's going on.
Okay.
So I gave him my phone number too.
He's looking at me and I'm completely ignoring the camera.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm going to be standing right here.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm delighted to meet you, Richard.
It's been an honor meeting you too. Thank you so much for making the trip out here and sharing this for other people to see things.
You're glad to.
I am rolling. So to start things off, can you say and spell for me your first and last name?
Marian Poppelmeyer. Marian Poppelmeyer.
And a title you can put underneath your name.
Daughter of passenger killed, flight 629. Is that a title like that, or do you want author?
Yeah, author.
Author.
Because yeah, we'll ask you about your book. So tell me, so we're doing the storyline I was telling you off camera. It'll be like a part of the 10% gives, trying to also get more funds, looking ahead to the 70th commemoration of the tragedy. So if you can, tell me, you don't have to go too far into that day, but kind of tell me what happened, and then we'll come back to the stuff that we are bringing to Colorado today. So tell me
And it occurred after the plane took off from Stapleton Airport. About 10 minutes after. Flight went off, there was a big explosion. in Will County. The plane exploded over 640 square acres of recently plowed wheat fields in Will County, Colorado. All 43 passengers were killed, all 44, excuse me, passengers were killed, including my dad, Marian Hopgood. He was on that flight on a business trip from Philadelphia to the West Coast, and I wasn't born yet. My mom was left instantly widowed. All of the lives on the plane obviously were shattered, instantly changed overnight, forever, by one evil act.
And this happened 70 years ago, this November. Tell me the aftermath of the plane explosion, the plane bombing, the aftermath of the rescue. Who were the first responders, and what were people doing out there to protect those 44 people?
Everyone knew it was a flight pattern from Stapleton, and they knew that something really massive, very serious happened. The explosion lit up the whole entire horizon, not just a little bomb explosion up in the air that you see, but huge. So everyone, because 4 farmers farmed that land, they're in 168-acre plots. Now, the first on the field that I know, that I'm aware of, was the Hop family. They had farmed 160 of those acres. Hop family is still alive and well in Firestone today, but they were the first on the beet fields. And what they uncovered was a warlike zone. They didn't know whether it was a cargo plane or passenger plane, but when they got on there, they uncovered the bodies. They weren't the only ones though, so pretty soon everyone came rushing on and just pitched in and did their part in a huge search and rescue mission that night. From baseball team players dropped what they were doing at one of the universities nearby, the American Legion in Longmont, very big key in what they did that night. They rushed on the field. Some of them ran coffee all night, because once they realized it was a passenger plane and it was in pitch dark, it was, let me explain, it was different than when a plane crashes, usually everything is intact. In this case, the plane blew up, and so the bodies were thrown around, predominantly on 160 acres, which was a hop farm. 4 were found outside, but they encountered this, but it took massive help. So citizens, the FBI rallied up from Denver, police rallied up to help control the crowds that were now forming. People were crowding in from all over the place, following the blasts. Many of them were gawkers. Unfortunately, many were looters. Then you had the reporters, the journalists, the media coming on the scene, the FBI, the CAB, which is the Civil Aeronautics Board. 2 days later, the National Guard got caught in it. It was a huge, massive effort, because the tail of the plane landed in one section and 1.5 miles away diagonally in this large plot of land the nose landed. And debris was scattered all over. The engines made 16-foot, 6-foot craters. So it was massive. Fires burning everywhere. Johnson's Corner, which recently closed, the general manager there, and I had the privilege of meeting and knowing the son of the man, he told the story firsthand. His father kicked in and called all his suppliers and his crew in, and they commandeered making all the sandwiches and food and taking snacks into their part of the field, because it's massive field. Some people never received benefit, like the Conrad Hop jokes today about, I never saw the sandwiches, but everyone came and did what they had to do, and that's what I asked when I got to meet Conrad Hop, one of the first eyewitnesses on the site. He was 18 years old at the time. I asked him and Martha, his wife, how in the world did you do this? And Martha replied, we did what we had to do. So ordinary, everyday citizens, which I call the unsung heroes, worked in unity with government, unity with all the entities involved in the largest search mission ever up to that point. And it continued afterwards. I don't know what more you want.
No,
You're gonna have to splice it out.
Yeah, and there are people like watching out trying to ward off looters. And tell me about there was someone who was something over your father and
Yeah.
was watching over.
Okay, I'll tell you what Conrad happened, because I can speak for him, and then the others obviously would have picked up and done the same. Conrad Hopp was 18 years old when he rushed on the scene, and he and his father and brother recognized how horrible it was. So they ran back to the house, loaded up their pickup truck with every single blanket they could, and they went out searching for the bodies. And as they found a body, they covered the body. Not only did they cover the body, but Conrad Hopp drove circles in his truck around each body and to mark it, because it was pitch dark. He had somehow marked it so that people wouldn't run into the bodies or run over the bodies or whatever. He marked the bodies. But then they quickly got wind that looters were out, actually, unfortunately, mutilating the bodies and stealing the jewelry. So then they placed ordinary, everyday American citizen from the area would be posted by that body, guarding it until the FBI came and identified the body. And when they gave the approval for it to be removed, then locals as well as funeral directors helped bag the bodies and then carry them to Greeley State Armory. It's still in existence today. It's an event banquet hall now, but has rich history for local people here. Need to go visit it. But it became a makeshift morgue. And so then they had quite a crew there, but that's what happened that night. And it went all through the night till about 4 a.m. the next day. But I've been meeting more eyewitnesses and saying, no, Marian, it continued longer than that. It took longer than that too. And then they would do the search and rescue for about a month. You know how in search and rescues, they hold hands, walk across the field. Conrad, more and more, he's been able to talk about it, and he shared this element that citizens up there donated their time, energy, quit their work, quit their farming, whatever it was, and continued the search to pick up the debris, to find the debris, to find whatever, to clean up the field, and it went on for months afterwards. So it was a huge endeavor beyond that initial shock of the tragedy of Flight 629.
What items were found on your father?
On my father,
Were you able to retrieve and
his watch and 2 cufflinks, 2 pairs of cufflinks. Why 2 pairs? I don't know. 2 pairs with, and I know that for a fact because my mom eventually gave them to me and said that they were the FBI tags that were on his effects. So his wedding band my husband wears. So his wedding band was saved. So fortunately, my dad was not.
How did your mom get the items? When were they able to retrieve it, identify it, and get it to her?
Guess this is an interesting story. I recently went through more of her things, not expecting to find any more treasures about my dad, because I uncovered quite a bit already. But I found a letter, and it wasn't until August of 1956 when she got a letter from United Airlines. And United Airlines is the one that sent back the artifacts. So it was a whole, half a year later.
And your father was a soldier, so it was easier for him to be identified. Was that the case? Was it?
That's a good point. I'm glad you asked that. It was. The first bodies to be identified were those who had been in the military because of their thumbprints, their fingerprints. And this is interesting. A pair of women, young women from Greeley, met me last year when I came out, and I spoke in 4 different places, and they were there. And they said, Marian, we've been doing research on Flight 629, and we have an original article that says your dad would have been one of the first 5 to be discovered. And so I hope on this trip or future trips I'll be able to connect with them, because they said they would give me a copy of that. So yes, he was. The veterans were discovered. They could be identifiable first. But identifying them apart from that would have been difficult because of the shape of the bodies.
So, what are you doing here today at History Colorado? You made a trip here from Ohio?
Yes,
Okay,
from Ohio.
What are we doing here?
Well, I got a call, and I'm so delighted. Denver Police Museum, Mike has the Denver Police Museum. I got to know him last year, and they have been planning a huge 70th anniversary event, memorial event, for the families of the victims and for all the first responders, both governmental and local, all the parties involved, from the court system to you name it. They've been organizing this huge event for this year because it's the 70th anniversary of the crash, and he's doing it because there's never been a memorial. There's never been anything done in honor of the passengers killed or in honor of all the rescuers. And so I'm here because he connected with History Colorado, and Colorado is now doing a full exhibit, and I don't know the name of it, whether it's Flight 629, I don't know what they're going to call it, but they're doing a huge year-long exhibit on not only the crash scene, what happened that night, what was uncovered, but they're also with hopefully pieces of the plane, maybe. And then they're going to cover the court case. Part of the exhibit is going to cover the court case because it was outlandish. It was a national disaster. President Eisenhower lost 2 people on that flight. And it changed the way FBI did forensics. It changed the aviation industry. It changed the court system. ABC 7 was the first TV station allowed to go into the courtroom with their cameras. It was the first it affected legislation. President Eisenhower, within the next year, enacted legislation. Can you believe it? Outlawing the bombing of a plane. It wasn't on the books before. So he got legislation passed. So it changed so much that has affected us today that it's about time that memorials being done, and that is what History Colorado is talking about. But I'm real excited because they wanted to bring in the human element into this. That whenever a tragedy happens in the U.S., normally all we hear about is about the tragedy, the court case, the criminal. They'll examine, psychoanalyze the criminal, mention maybe the families, but then after all the media dies, the families are forgotten, whose lives have been utterly shattered by such horrible acts, like shootings, bombings, whatever. And so I'm so delighted that their focus is going to be on the human side. And when they heard about me, they asked to find artifacts of my dad that they could put on display. So I'm very honored that my dad is going to represent all of the passengers, and there are all kinds of passengers on board. They're married couples, baby, pilots, the stewardesses, but my dad has chosen to represent all of them, and so I hope that all of you will come. can come. It'll be up year long, and I can't wait to come and see it, because I'm gonna come back November 1st this year, 2025, and see it on exhibit, and I know personally my dad would be very proud.
How important is this exhibit, memorial for this event that is a first in the United States, a first in Colorado, and not many people know about it?
Exactly. It got buried, totally buried, in the archives. I don't know why. Maybe because it was so horrific. It could not be that the airlines that got sabotaged, was impacted. I don't know. I do know from my coming back and then meeting Conrad Hopp and his family, and then meeting more people who are alive today, then meeting more people who have been chronicling the history of that area. They told me that it was totally buried because it was so traumatic on the community, and that no one really was talking about it. No one really wanted to talk about it until recently. And now people are opening up, and healing is coming. I'm hearing stories last year when I spoke for different places. I mentioned that before. But the son of the funeral director, I met him. He was a teenager, and he shared what his father did. His father was a funeral home director in Greeley, and commandeered all the funeral directors. He called at least 50 funeral directors around the area. Hey, we need your help. So citizens like that, I met the, son of Johnson's Corner, shared his dad's story. So I'm hearing these stories that have just been buried because I think it was just too traumatic, and that people involved at the time just did not want to talk about it or could not talk about it. That's my opinion.
I know you said you're excited for the exhibit. What are you hoping the community and Colorado as a whole gets out of
Sorry,
the
I'm running out of battery, so see if I can change out the battery and I'll come back. George Sawtooth.
I really hope that they will seize the opportunity to see what their makeup is on that sarcophagus. It took courage and Conrad Hopp corrected me, there were like 500 people on the field. It took courage for local, everyday citizens to work alongside a handful of FBI agents. I don't know how many FBI agents were there, but alongside the authorities in doing what had to be done. And I hope that they realize this is a huge legacy and speaks well of the state of Colorado. And can I say when I wrote my book and had to dig into the research of what happened, I realized the American spirit was so displayed that night in the field. And I think that's real good for our nation to understand that there were heroes. And I hope that Coloradians, the new ones moving in, as well as the old ones whose families have been here a long time, will really recognize their legacy.
The title of your book?
Oh, Finding My Father, Beyond Tragedy, Through Trauma, and Into Freedom.
My actual last question is, although it's temporary, was it difficult to give away your stuff, give away your father's items?
Well, you know what? This is it. They call it a history center. This is a history center, Colorado history. In Ohio, we have the State Ohio Historical Museum. So I fully trust a museum that records history to keep care of my dad's stuff. I totally have trust in them. They know what they're doing. They can handle the artifacts. And I know the display is going to be awesome. I know that it's going to be meaningful, and I hope in some ways, I don't know how they're gonna do it, you know, because they're creative. It'll leave people with hope that people can move beyond tragedy, and that there is hope for life after. I hope that this will help inspire people to recognize not just the sadness, you know, my dad's loss and who he was, and the human aspect, that they'll leave with hope and be inspired that they can make it through any tragedy themselves.
I don't know if I can beat that last statement. That's all I wanted to ask you. Thank you so much. Is there anything you wanted to add? Anything I should have asked
Well,
you?
I realized the only thing I did share was that I could only be doing here because I was led in my faith to forgive the man. Now,
How long did that take? Yeah, I'm sure that was difficult to do.
Oh, very, I didn't want to do it. Did not want to do it. Did not. But I was going, when I was 42 years old, is when I heard my mom's story for the first time. But I began, around that time, began to miss my real dad for really the very first time in my life. My stepdad didn't let us talk about him, so I had a big mystery as to who he was. And as an adult, I began to ask questions, little bit by little bit, but nothing like what I heard when I was age 42, around that time. And I went through massive emotional healing. I didn't realize I needed it. I didn't realize how that one trauma tragedy affected my whole life. I call it the ripple effect of trauma. And I just really, searching to know my real dad so bad, but that searching, my faith in God, if I can say this, God really led me to forgive a dead man. I mean, that was my biggest struggle, because he had gotten the death penalty. But he really led me to forgive the man who killed my dad. And the day that I did it, I had so much freedom. So it's really the only reason why I could have written my book. It's the only reason why I could even come here today, was because of that pinnacle point in my life. And I've just been free ever since. I can talk about it. I couldn't even say the man's name before. I still don't like saying his name, so you know, so I haven't. But at least then I could. But I couldn't before. It was very, very difficult.
Thank you for sharing, being vulnerable with us, and loaning to Mr. Colorado for everyone to see this history. And thank you, because if I'm going to end this, not too many people know about this, so it's important for us to do this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Can I hug you?
Yes, you can. Oh my goodness, you are so good. You are just like Jeff. So much. I'm trying to do the sound bites. I've been learning sound bites. I'm trying to.
That one bite that she had, I'm definitely ending my
All right. This is George Sawtooth. See you guys later.